Okay, so SQL now, like we have a programming language like Java is there, C is there, Python. There are a lot of programming languages. So in programming language, you write some program, you run the program, and you get your output, right? Similarly, when you want to store data into database or you want to retrieve data from database, we make use of SQLs, structured query language. Like you can create a table using SQL, you can insert data using SQL, retrieve data, update, delete, all those operations, all of that can be done with the help of SQL, right? So SQL stands for structured query language, and it is the language that is used in RDBMS, relational database management system, to perform operations on database, right? It is easy to learn and understand. We'll see in some time that it's pretty easy. So what are the various operations which we can do with SQL? Is you can perform insert, update, delete, right? These are pretty much different operations which we can perform. Now, when SQL command is fired on database, as database parser will pass the SQL command, understand it, and perform the required operation. Now, what does it mean? When you have a Java program, what happens? First, you compile it, right? And then you run the code, right? That's what we do. Similarly, when you have a SQL structured query language, first of all, there is a database parser which will parse it. Parse it is sort of compiling it, and then if syntactically everything is fine, then it will execute the statement SQL on the database, and you will get the result that you are expected to get, right? So we are going to try some of the SQL operations, which is create table, insert into table, update, delete. Some of these operations, let's try it out. Fine. So now in order to do this, there are few things which you have to set up in your machine, and I'm going to share some information with you. Whatever I'm discussing with you from SQL, all of this is being recorded and I'll put it on YouTube. Now, where do you find all this information? I will share a link for this, or what you can do is if you go to YouTube and you can search for connect to tech. Okay, so if you search for this, you will find few videos. There will be if you click on this connect to tech, you can find the latest video which I'll put after today's recording, and let's say this is the latest video. You can click on this one, and all the information that, or rather the code that I'm going to use or whatever I'm going to do, you can find here in the comment section below. Fine. So if you'll go to the video, here in the public comment section, I'm going to put the URL of the code and all the other things, like from where to download the database or any other information. Okay, so don't worry about that. All of that will be available in this particular video or the most recent video, just by searching for Connect to Tech on the YouTube. Fine. So let's get started. So I will let me switch my workspace. Okay, now this is where we are going to do our coding. What is that? Yeah, JDBC programming. Now I'm going to put all this code in Bitbucket. How to access that? It's a very simple concept. I will explain that to you in a couple of minutes. Okay, but first of all, I'm going to show you few links that you will need. Okay, so one of the link is let me go to, yeah. So one of the link is, where can I? Okay, first of all, you have to download the SQL Server, right? So this is the link I will share. I will actually put in this code in the Bitbucket, and I will tell you how to access the Bitbucket. Don't worry about it. Okay, so this is the link which you have to click on. So I'll go to the browser. I'll click on this. Now, once you open this link, I'm going to make use of SQL Server with the version 5615 here, right? So in the drop down, you can go here 5615, 5615. You can choose that, and once you do that, depending upon whether you are using a 32-bit Windows machine or 64-bit, you can choose this. If you are not using Windows or any other operating system, then you can go here, right? You can find that it is there for SUSE Linux, Debian, Red Hat, Oracle, Mac, right? For different operating systems, you can find the MySQL Server. You click on the download and download will start. Right now, after the download is done, you will see it is downloaded as a zip file, right? You have to unzip it. So in my case, I have already done the download and I have unzipped the file. I'm not going to do that again. So after unzipping, this is where I have that zip here. If you will see, this is very much similar to MySQL 5615, right? MySQL 5615 Win64, right? So without the zip, so I have, this is where I have unzipped my SQL Server, MySQL Server, right? Now, after you do that, now I'm assuming that for all of this to work successfully, you should have Java installed on your machine, right? So that is a presumption that Java is already installed on your machine. Now, what you can do is you have to go to this folder, right? And inside that, you have to go to bin folder. Once you go to bin folder, you have to open this directory in command prompt. So let me open that. So you select all of this, type CMD and hit enter. Okay. Now you have to start the server. What is a server? Server is also a program, right? First it has to be started to use it. So for doing that, there is a simple command, my sqld -- console. Now some people download the exe file of the server and install it and run it. That is also fine. But generally, when you install it as an exe, it will run as a service in the background, right? So every time you start your machine, it will keep running. So it will take up a lot of memory. I don't want to do it like that. That's why I started from command line, right? So I'll hit enter here and it will start my server, right? So you will get some output here and you will see that the server has started running on port number 3306. Fine. So server is up and running, MySQL Server. Now what we have to do is we have to perform some operations with this particular database server which we have already installed. Okay. Now in order to do that, what I'm going to use, I'm going to make use of a tool called Heidi. What is Heidi? Heidi is like an editor, like you have Eclipse as an editor, Node++ as an editor, right? All those are editor. Similarly, we have a tool called Heidi. Heidi can be used to perform or rather fire SQL operations on the database. Okay, so you can simply go to Google if you want to download HEIDI SQL. Okay, once you go here, you can take one of this link, download free, download it. It's an exe file. Simply download it and install it by clicking next. You don't have to change any options, just download and install it. I have already done the installation, so I'm not going to show the installation process. You don't have to do any changes in the default setting, just download it, click next, and that should be fine. No changes required, right? Now assuming that your SQL Server is running and as well your Heidi is installed, right? And I have also started the SQL Server here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect first of all to the database, right? So for that I will type Heidi here, right? If you have Windows, you can 10, you can type Heidi here, or you can go to start menu and open Heidi SQL, right? So you will click on this icon and it will bring up a dialog box like this, right? Now in your case, it will be some no name or something will be there. You can double click and change the name if you want to do that. Okay, just 1 minute. I have it got connected. So let me again open my Heidi here. Okay, from here I opened my Heidi. Now when you do this, here you have to give your username as root. By default, the username is root and password is blank. You don't have to put any password. In my case, I have changed the password to password, but in your case, it will be blank and you have to choose here 3306. Why? Because your server, if you will see, is running on the port 3306 here, right? So you will choose 3306 and you will say open. Okay, so this in my this will bring up a window like this, right? Now first of all, what you have to do is you have to create a database instance. Okay, so this is the database. In the database you can have different instances like department 1, right, or HR instance. I mean you can have multiple instance. What is an instance? It's a I should say physical database which you are actually going to create. The project, for your project you need different instances, right? So how do you create an instance? You right click on this. Okay, initially there will be some instances already information schema, app fuse, for example. Don't delete any of that. Okay, let them be there. So right click here and say create new and then click on database. Okay, so I'm going to call it as webinar 1, WEBINAR, or we'll call it JDBC, JDBC 1, let's call it. Fine. Now I'll say okay here, right? So once you do this, you will find that there is a JDBC1 instance getting created here, right? So I'll select that. After selecting that, I mean there are multiple instances I have. I'll select my JDBC instance here and then I'll go to this query editor. So this is the editor of Heidi where we are going to perform all the SQL operations. Okay, so let's try to perform some of those operations. So the operation that we are going to begin with or start with is we'll create a table, then we'll insert data and we'll perform various operations, right? So this is a cheat sheet which I'm going to use and I'll share this with you. Don't worry, all this information I'll share with you post our discussion. But for now, I'm going to use this. Okay, so we have already created instance, database instance. Now what our first thing which we have to do is create a table, right? So what is the query we have to find? Create table, name of the table I'll call it employee. Okay, in that I will create the columns, right? So I'll say ID and I have to tell what data type it is. ID is integer, name is where, char, where care means a string. So I'll give it size 20 and then I'll say uh, uh, let's say DEPART department. Again I'll say VAR where care. Let me make it 100. Let me also make this as 100. 20 means it can hold characters or a string with size 20. So let me increase the size to 100. Right after that I'll also say salary and I'll call it int for now, right? Now I will select this control A and I'll right click and I'll say run selection. Okay, so once I run selection, you will see here at the bottom you will get an output that affected rows is 0, found 0, means it has executed successfully without any warning or sorry, without any error message, right? So it means the table has been created successfully. Now what you can do is you can select this JDBC1 and refresh on this F5, right? If you do a refresh here, you will see and expand with this arrow. Can you see this arrow? Right, I click here greater than sign, you will see a table called employee which is got created, which we just created, right? Now if you go select that, you have multiple tabs here. If you will go to data, this is the tab which shows the data which is in this particular table. So currently there is no data here, right? So it is showing as empty or there is no entry in this particular table here, right? Now what I'm going to do is let's go inside this editor again and let's try to add some data, right? So how do we add data? We say insert in2 into name of the table. I'll copy here, right? In table, what is that? I want to insert ID comma name comma department comma SALARY, right? Open and close. Then I'll say values, VLUES, right? I'll say ID is 100, name is let's call it JD Mike, we'll call department is Java and salary is, for example, 100. Fine. So if you will see, this field data type matches with this field data type, and same is true for all the other fields which I'm making use of, right? So I'm going to select this. I'll right click and say run selection. So if you will run this, at the bottom here, if you will see, it says affected row 1, found row 0, warning is 0, right? So affected row 1 means one row has got added. So how do we know that? I'll refresh this database by pressing F5 again, expand it and click on employed table. And if I go to data here now, here you will see the data has got created for me, right? So let's go ahead and add one more record. So I will call it 100, 101, and salary I'll make it 200. Fine. So if I select this whole thing, and if I say right click run selection, so again affected row is 1, right? Now you can again refresh it, click on the table, go to the data tab, and you will see the record getting inserted in the table, right? Now this is not the only way of seeing data. So this is a SQL operation which I perform to insert data. We can also fetch data from the table by saying select star from EMPLOYEE, right? If I select this whole statement, and if I right click and run selection, you will see that record is getting displayed here for me, right? So far what we have done is, let's just quickly go to my OneNote here. So if you will see, we have done some basic operations like create table we have done, insert into the table we have done, right? Now let's perform update operation on the table, or rather a row. So what you can also do is, you can say update a particular table. So I'll say update EMPLOYE employee, update table, right? And then I will give set of, let's say salary, set of salary equal to 250, 250, right? Where ID equal to 101, right? So what this will do is, on this particular table, it will set the salary column to 250 for an ID equal to 101, right? For this particular guy, which is Peter. If I don't give here this particular entry, what will happen? It will update for all the rows, right? So I'll give here, right? So let's select this. So basically we are trying to perform an update operation. So we'll right click and run selection. Okay, so affected row, it says 1 here, and then let me select this, right click, run selection, right? So can you see that it has got updated to 250, right? So that was regarding the update operation. Now similarly we can also perform a delete record. So delete is a simple operation. You can say delete, delete from where ID equal to 101. For example, I want to delete this particular record, right? So I can select this entire row, right click, run selection. So affected row 1. After that, if I again say select star from employee, right? So it shows only one record, right? That record has got deleted. Fine. So we have done create table, insert, update, delete. Now drop table I will tell you later on, because that will delete the table. I will tell this later on. Now alter table is also there. What is alter table? Meaning that suppose you have already created a table and you want to add one more column to that, or make some changes in the structure of the table, right? So in that case you can make use of alter table operation. So you can say alter table, uh, table employee, alter table, table name. Then I'll say add column, add a new. So I have ID name department, I'll say add age, and I'll make it of type int, right? So I don't have age column here, right? I have ID, name, department, and salary. So if I say alter table name, add a column here, and the name of the column is age, and the data type is int, right? So if I select this now and right click and run this selection, let's see what happens. So it says alter table this, right? So it ran without any error, right? Now let me refresh this database once again. Let's go to the employee table, and if I go to data tab, can you see that age column has also got created? I mean, of course it doesn't have any value because we have not put any value, but this is how you can alter the structure of the table as well with the help of SQL statements, right? So that is regarding alter table. Select, I have already told you, right? So when you say select star, it will select all the records, or you can specify that. So if I say select star from employee, right? If I right click and run this, so it gives me that particular, it has only one. Let me enter one more here for the time being. So I'll enter this one, and then if I say select star once again, so there are two records now, right? Now what if I want to select only some columns and not all the columns? So I can say select maybe ID comma name only, right? If I choose these two columns only, then on the selection, right click run selection, it will only show me two columns, right? Or I can give conditionally where ID is greater than 100, right? So it will only fetch those columns for me where the ID is greater than 100, right? So let me say select star from this table where ID is greater than 100. I should right click run selection. So this is where I get my record, right? So you can specify various criterias, less than, greater than, uh, I mean, there are a lot of options available where you can restrict the records that are getting displayed to the end user, right? So we have seen select. Next is a view. Okay, so view, okay, view is maybe, okay, view we can take it up later maybe. So this also, okay, then let's look at average, count, min, and max. So these are some group functions. What is a function? Inbuilt functions which are provided in, like in programming language, we have inbuilt functions, right? Similarly, we have inbuilt functions available in this SQL as well. Okay, so for example, if you will see here, if I say select star from employee, and if I try to run this, right click run as selection, so it gives me all the records. What if I want to find average of the salary? So I can say select AVG of SA, SALAR, select average from EMPLOYEE, right? Sorry, I have to run selection, run selection. So do you see that average of the salary is being displayed, right? Or I can say max of salary, max or min of salary, right? So these are some functions which are inbuilt functions which are provided and available for me to perform, right? So these are some inbuilt functions which are provided in SQL for me, which I can make use of and perform various database related operations. Okay. Now coming to view. Now view is like view is generally called a window to the table. Window as in that via which you can access the content of a table. So suppose this is a table which contains your salary also, right? Select star from employee. Now it might so happen that the HR can see your salary, but your colleague should not be able to see your salary, right? So what you can do is you can create another structure in database which is called view, right? So that view, what it does, you can restrict uh, that that view can only see only few columns or some columns and not all the columns. Okay, so you can say create CREA as my create view, name of the view. After that we say as select what all you want to select, uh, ID comma name comma department from this table, right. So what is this we are trying to do is we are creating a view which is only fetching one two three entries from that particular table. So if I try to execute it, I don't. Okay, so it creates a view for me, right? Now if I go and refresh this F5, right, you will see a view getting created here, right? Now if I say select star from view, select star from my view, this is the name of the view which I have just created, right? So I'll call it my underscore view, right? So you will see that this time I see the records in the table, but I am restricting the user from being able to see the salary, right? So view is not actually holding the real data. The data is still in table, but I'm creating a view to the table or a window via which I can see the contents of that particular table. Okay, so this is how we basically make use of view. And finally, you can drop a table. Drop a table means you can remove the table from the memory, right? So when you drop a table, it will also remove the record from the tables, right? So I'll say drop ta. So first of all I have to drop a view dr, for example the drop uh, drop. Okay, we have to say drop view, right? So that has got dropped. Now if I refresh F5, you will see that it has got dropped. Similarly, if you want to drop a table, drop table employee, right? So I'm now selecting it and I'll run the selection. So it has got dropped. If I refresh this table, you will not find the table here, right? So these are some of the basic operations that you can perform with SQL structured query language. Now, now the purpose of JDBC programming is that you should be able to perform all these operations which we just did with SQL with the help of Java program, right? So that is what JDBC, it stands for Java Database Connectivity, JDBC. So what is JDBC? JDBC, it stands for Java Database. Okay, that is what is meant by JDBC. Now in the case of JDBC programming, what we are going to do is whatever we have just done with the SQL, same thing we are going to perform with Java. Now, a lot of times, I mean, you could be a developer or you could be into testing. You might have to get data from database tables, perform database operations, and I mean, you could be doing pretty much a lot of things with database, right? So there must be a way wherein we can perform all these operations, SQL operations, with the help of database, or rather with database with the help of Java programming. Fine. So before we jump into what you say JDBC programming, let's quickly break for 5 minutes and then we'll start after the 5 minutes break. Okay. Okay, so let's get started. And when I'm winding up the session, once again, I'll tell you how to access all this code and whatever I'm showing to you, right? How to access all of this, I'll let you know where you will find the YouTube video and the links that is needed for all this discussion that we are having. Fine. So now what I'm going to do is we are going to look at how do we do database programming, right? So uh, I'm assuming that at least you have your Eclipse project in place, right? So let me, I have created this project. I believe you all know how to create a simple Java project. I've created a project with this name, connect to tech.in. Now just allow me a few minutes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on Bitbucket in front of you, okay? And this will be publicly available, right? Publicly available as in anybody can see it. It is not password protected. So I will do that right away for you. Or rather, when this recording, which I'll put it on YouTube, under the comment section, it will have link to the code link. And if you go to the code, there is a notes text here, right? In this, I have given the link to download it, right? Link to download the jar file, which I'm going to talk about in some time. And for Heidi, I told you just say Google download Heidi, it will download the Heidi for you. Fine. So now let's look at a little bit of theory around JDBC programming, and then I'll come back to discussing the coding part. Now, one thing you should understand is that there are depending upon which database you are making use of. For example, data type which is Boolean in Java, in SQL Server it is called bit, in Oracle it is called byte. It is not applicable. There is no Boolean in MySQL, right? Integer, it is int in SQL Server, number in Oracle, and int or integer in MySQL Server, right? So these are some differences you have to be aware of. You can Google and pull out this information. It is very easy to find data types in different databases, right? So for example, float is float real here, number here, and float here, right? Okay, so next is JDBC. Now JDBC, as I told you, stands for Java Database Connectivity, right? JDBC API is industry standard for standard for database independent connectivity. Now this is where I'm going to spend a lot of time explaining what is meant by that. And JDBC interface is not specific to database. Now this slide is very important, though it is theoretical, but you need to understand this clearly. Okay, so let me first explain this diagram, and then I'll go back. Okay, suppose this is your Java code, right? Now, when you have a Java code, you make use of JDBC API. What is an API? API stands for Application Programming Interface. Interface is like some kind of a facilitator or some piece of a program which lets you communicate with somebody, right? It's an interface, right? So with the interface, you call a driver manager, right? What is a driver manager? Which manages the driver? Right? For timing, just understand it like that. I'll get into details later on, which in turn calls the driver. Now, what is a driver? Driver is that piece of code which enables communication from Java to SQL Server and vice versa, right? So, for example, if I'm making use of my SQL Server, I will need a JDBC driver with which I can send commands from Java to SQL Server. It should take my commands, convert it into SQL, and do the response, perform the operation, and return the response back to me, right? So that is the purpose of a driver. Fine. So it means that first of all we need a driver to be used, right? So where is the driver? I'm giving you a link from where you can download. Again, that link is available here. If you will go to Eclipse, just 1 minute. Okay, so this is the location which is again available in notes.file, right? Or you can even search from Google MySQL connector, or there is one another place where you can go to. If you want to find this, you can go MVN repository. If you go here, and in this, if you will search for MySQL connector, I'm using this version 606. You can take a different version. It really doesn't make much difference. Okay, MySQL connector, if you click here, right? So 616 I'm making use of, right? So what was that? 606. So if you click here, right, then there will be an option to download. If you will click at this link jar, you can click on this and it will download it for you, right? Either you can take it like this, or you can take it from this link on my Google Drive, which I have already put, and download it, right? So after you download it, what you will do is, or what we are going to do is, I'll create a folder here. I'll call it jar underscore files, right? So I will take that file. So let me download it right away in front of you. So I'll put it in my, for the time being, on my downloads, right? And here I'll go to Selenium, maybe here, and I'll save the file here. Fine. Now I'll go to this directory. Okay, it's still getting downloaded. It is not completed. Okay, I'll copy this. Although you can keep it here also and add it as an external jar, but generally as a practice, I generally copy that file into my folder here in that project, right? Okay. Now after that, you have to right click on this and say add to build path. Add to build path means that whatever code is inside this jar file or drivers with this in this jar file can be used in my project. Either you can go it like this, add to build path. Another way is you can right click here, go to properties, go to Java build path, and from here you can say add jar, right? Go to that project, go to that location and select it from here as well. So there are different ways of doing it, right? So for now this is simpler. Right click, add to build path, right? Now why did we do this? I will explain it once again. If you don't have it, it will throw that driver is not available exception. And as you can see in this diagram in front of you, that the driver is required to communicate. Why? Because Java does not understand SQL, right? And SQL does not understand Java. So there should be a facilitator or a communicator between those two, right? That's where this particular jar file is coming in picture, right? Okay, so we have a brief idea of what is a driver, or rather this jar file or a driver we have used, right? Okay, now I there are few steps involved when connecting to database. So what you have to do is, first you load the driver into the memory and then connect to database, right? So how does the loading happens? So let me just show that to you. So let me create my first file here. Let me close this. I'll create a file here, right click, new, and I'll create a class here. I'll call it connect to DB, right? In this, I'm going to create a method called main, right? Here I have a method called main. Now, first of all, what I'll do is I'll have to load the driver into this program memory and then connect to database. So what I will say is, if you will go back here in this diagram, you will see there is a driver manager, right? Yes. So let me call this driver manager. So can you see that this driver manager is coming from this particular package, right? So for the timing, let's say I do not know what is this, so I'll copy it and I'll go to documentation, copy it, documentation, documentation, right? Now I'll go inside this documentation, and then what I'm going to do is I'll click on this first link from docs Oracle documentation. So this looks like some kind of a class, right? This is a class, and one of the constructor of that class is, if you will come down here, where is that driver manager, right? If you will come down here, there is a get connection object is there, method is there, right? Which is a static method. Static means class name dot method name we can call. So I'm going to call this particular method. In this I specify, if I click on this, it says attempt to establish connection to the given database URL, right? So it takes URL, username and password, right? So let me create, so let me say driver dot get connection, this particular method I'm making use of, right? And all these three are string. So I'll say string string URL equal to something, string user is equals to something, and string password equal to some value, right? string. Fine. Now username password, we know username is root, right? And password in your case it will be blank, but in my case it is password, right? Now what is URL? URL is basically a way to tell this program that where is my database server running, right? So first of all I have to specify the driver, which I'm making use of JDBC driver, JDBC colon my SQL I'm using. This is the driver I'm using, colon slash slash. This database is running on localhost. Localhost means this machine. If it is some other machine, I have to give IP of that machine, right? So I will say here localhost. It is running on which port? It is 3306, right? So I'll say colon 3306. Then I'll say slash. What is the name of the database instance that we are making use of? So what is that name? It is JDBC1, right? So slash, I'll say JDBC, right? So I'm saying that connect to this instance on this port on this machine using MySQL driver, right? Yeah. Now when I perform this operation, so basically driver manager dot get connection will establish a connection with the database for me, right? So when I say driver dot, it throws some exception, right? So we have to handle that, right? So I'll put this in the try catch block. You can put it in the exception block for now, okay? So, or if you don't want to put this one, it throws a specific exception. So you can even click on this error and say surround with try catch, and whatever exception it is throwing SQL exception. It is one kind of exception, right? So I put it in try catch block, right? Now after this I'll say sys out done. Means if everything goes fine in line number 12, it will display me line number 14, that connection established or done, right? So let me say connection established here, ESTABLISHED, right? Yeah. So let's run this program and see. So first of all, let me make some mistake here. So let me give JDB. JDB is not there, right? It is JDBC. So let me run with a wrong entry. If I right click and run as Java application, right? So let's see what happens. It gives me unknown database. Can you see error unknown database, right? So let me make some correct JDBC here now, correct entry, meaning that I'm now connecting to the correct database. Right click, run as Java application. So unknown database, okay, sorry, it is JDBC1. So now right click, run as Java application. So it says connection established, right? Now what if my database is not running? If I stop this, Control C will stop the database, okay? So my database is not running now, right? So if I now try to connect, it will give a different error that can't connect to database. Right click, run as Java application, right? So can you see connection refused? Means the database is not running for me. Okay, so in order to make connection successfully, it should be running using this command which I have already shared with you, right? And after this, if you rerun it, you will see that right click, run as Java application. So it will say connection established, right? So with this, we have successfully tested that our database is up and running and we have established connection from our program, Java program to the underlying database, right? Now next thing is, now we will follow these steps. So first thing what we did is create table, right? In order to create table, what we are going to do is, so now as a part of these steps which we were following is first of all load driver, right? So where is the load driver happened? Let's say from this jar file which is there, I remove it from the let's say I remove it from the build path, right? In the beginning I added in the build path. Let's say I remove it, it is not in the build path, and let me run it again. Right click, run as Java application. So what is the error we are getting? It does not find the suitable driver, right? In the beginning I told you, or in some time back I told you that it requires a suitable driver, and that driver is available in this jar file, right? So this jar file should be in the class path of my project, right? If it is not there, then you will get this kind of an error. That isn't it? I showed this diagram to you, right? That you need a driver. That driver to connect to database is needed. If this driver is not there, connection will not be established successfully. Therefore, it is mandatory to have the jar file in the build path. Having it on your machine is not enough. It should be in the build path of your project. Fine. Now let me run it once again. So you will see that it is now able to successfully say connection established, right? Now the connections, so we have loaded the driver. So we loaded the driver, we established connection. Now we will create a statement. Now whenever you want to perform operation like in create table, insert, update, delete, first of all on the connection you create a statement, and on that statement you can perform various operations. So what we will do is, I will make a copy of this and I'll call it create table, right? So let me open this new file, create table. Now driver manager.get connections, in this documentation if you will see get connection, it returns a connection object, right? Yeah, this is the object which is of type Java SQL, right? Sorry, not of the type, but it is in this package java.sql, and the interface is connection, right? So I'll say CONNECTIN connection con equal to this, and I have to import this, right? Now I hope you people will remember from our earlier discussion that left side is an interface and right side is giving connection to this particular database. What I mean by that is, and it is important to understand this, when we talked about car C equal to new Maruti or car C equal to BMW, left was interface, right was object of that particular class. So when I said driver manager dot get connection, it created a connection object in such a way so that that object can help communicate with the underlying MySQL database, right? It has a super class connection, not a class interface. So if I explain this with a diagram here, so this is what is happening. There is a connection here, interface. Okay, internally the driver which I have made use of it, MySQL implementation is there, right? Oracle is there, right? And other databases are there, right? So depending upon the kind of entry I have made here and the driver which is got loaded, corresponding object is created, or the connection object is created and returned to me, and then I can say that class sorry, con dot method name, and it will call the method of MySQL. If it is Oracle, it will call Oracle, or vice versa, right? So this concept is basically overriding or polymorphism, where you have an ability to switch between different databases, right? You should not say that it should not be that MySQL connection or Oracle connection, right? Connection should be connection. So this concept is basically concept of method overriding or polymorphism. And with this, you have an ability to switch between different databases at runtime, right? Just by changing this entry here. So in future, if I want to introduce more databases in the market or in the industry, what I have to do is that there will be one more database here, and the person or the vendor who is coming up with a new database in the market, he'll give their driver, okay, and I'll just load that driver in the memory, and I can just start using the driver. I don't have to make all the changes in the code. So small changes are required. One is the URL to specify the right driver type, and that's pretty much about it. So this concept is known as programming to interface, or in sense that overriding is getting used here to switch between multiple databases, right? So when we were talking about interfaces, we said that bank B equal to HDFC, bank B equal to new of HDFC, or bank B equal to new of ICICI, and other things, right? So this right side is depending upon that instance of the database which we want to make use of. Fine. So this is one real example where why we should make use of interfaces. So and let me talk a little bit more about this. Is that this connection interface which is there is a standard which is defined in the IT industry, for example, right? Now, anybody who wants to come up with a new database and sell it in the market, they have to comply with all the methods which are there in connection interface, right? And then only it will be accepted in the industry or in the market, right? So that is concept of programming to interfaces, or why we say that interface is a specification which has to be fulfilled by all the new databases that come in the market. Fine. Okay, now connection is established. Now we have to create a table. So how do we do? Let me delete this line here. So from a connection, we get a statement. So if I say conn dot get state connection dot create statement is there, right? So if you click on this, I mean, if you don't remember the API, you can either say dot here, or if you go to the documentation here there will be. So how did I go here? This method which was getting returned, I click on connection. From here I get statement, right? Create statement, right? So what does it return? It returns a statement object. Fine. So I will go here and I'll say statement equal to, and then again I'll have to import this, import it from java.sql, right? So I'll import that. Now after I have the statement, let me take that query to create a table. So I will copy this and I will put it here, right? And I'll say string create table equal to, this is my string now, right? Simple string. Now here I'll say stmt dot execute query, and I'll put that create table here. Create create table, and after that I'll say sys out of created table cs, right? So let's run this program. Now what is this method doing? Statement, I don't know. So let's go and ask documentation. So it returns statement object. On the statement I'm saying execute query, right? Execute query, do you find somewhere? Yeah, executes the SQL statement, right? which returns a result set object. So let's not worry about what is return type, I'll come to that later, right? But for now we'll say execute query, right? So let me go ahead and run this program. Right click, run as Java application. Okay, or rather let me do some mistake here. Let's say I forgot to, I say create tab so and so. So there is a problem in the SQL statement, right? Right click, run as Java application. So let's see what happens. It says cannot issue data manipulation statement with execute query. Okay, okay. We have to make it execute. I'll tell you the difference between different statements that are available in some time. So let me just first do this one. So you will see it says you have an error in SQL syntax, check the manual, blah, blah, right? So first of all, you have to correct this. You have to say create TABLE, right? So this will go ahead and create the table successfully. Let's try it now again, Java application. So table is done, creation is done. How do I know? I go back here, refresh it, and I'll see that employee table is got created, right? Fine. Now that you have the employee table created, now let us perform some insertion in that, right? So either you can use the same file or another file. So I'll just create a copy of that insert into db, right? So if you will go here, everything remains same. I'll take this statement which I was making use of, insert into, right? And I'll copy and I'll paste it here, right? And I'll call it insert and I'll put it here, right? Insertion, and here I'll call insertion done. insert insertion done, right? So let's simply run this program. Right click, run as Java application. So insertion done, right? Now let me go ahead and refresh this here. I'll go to this and let me say F5. So this is where I have my data inserted into the table, right? Now a quick discussion on what is difference between different kinds of there are different kinds of executes available, right? So earlier I had made use of execute query, but I was supposed to use execute. So if you go to connection object, there are three execute available. One is a simple execute, right? Then there is an execute query is there, and execute update is there. So what is the difference between each one of them? So this method can be executed for or rather used for any kind of statement, which could be insert, update, or delete, or whatever you want to perform, right? But when you say execute query, this method is used to execute SQL statement which retrieves some data from the table, right? So when we say select star from, then you should say execute query. Fine. So let's try to use this one. So I'll try to fetch data from DB. So what I'm going to do is, let's call it pt fetch data from DB, right? So what was my statement? Select star, right? So this is the one we'll make use of. And I'll call it select, right? Now here I will not say execute, but here it will be execute query, and here I'll say select, right? Now if you will see that this returns, does it return something in documentation? We have forgotten to see. So it returns a result set. Result set is a set of results. So row 1, row 2, row 3, right? So I will make it like this, RESULTSET, right? RS, I'll call it like this, right? Now what is a result set? Result set is like, so the way you access the records from the table is, suppose this was my table. So let me go, where is my database here? Let me put one more record here. I can right click and duplicate row, and I can make it 101 my JMES, Java J2EE, and salary 200. Fine. Now, when you say select star from this one, and when you get the result set is sort of a pointer which is pointing just outside of this. So what I mean by that is there is a pointer which is pointing here just out before this first record, which has been returned by the query, right? So you have to get row 1, row 2, row 3, one by one you have to get, right? So what do? We say here while rs dot has next, sorry, has dot next means if there is a next record, yes, there is a next record, right? It is giving 2 records, so it will move the counter from here to the first record here. Okay, and then my control is on the first row, which is returned by the database by executing select star from the employee. Okay, and then from there I can say rs dot get. Now first column in this is my int, right? So I can say get of int. Now I can give here the name of the column, which is, what is the name here? It is id, right? Yeah, and since it is int, I'll say int id equal to this, or I can also say next is string s, next is string name equal to rs dot get string, right? Here you can even give the index, so it is 1 2. Indexing in JDBC starts from 1 2 3 4. So either you can give the column name or the index also. So here I can have either 2, or I can even give here name, right? Then I can say, but sometimes, or rather most of the time, name is more comfortable to understand, right? So then after that I have depart, I mean department, equal to rs dot get string of, what is that, department, right? department, right? And then string of, or no, not string, int of salary, right? So I will say int of salary. So this is my int int salary, right? So what will happen, this loop will run as many times as many rows are there which is returned. So let's print this now. Print of, not print sys out, since out of id, sys out of name, then sys out of department, right? And then sys out of salary, right? And then let me put a simple line here as a separator, right? So if I run this program, right click, run as Java application. So can you see the record, first record and second record? Okay, so basically what we did is we create statement. First of all, we create connection on that statement. On that, when you say execute query, it will execute that query and return a result set, right? If I give a statement where for example where salary is greater than 300, so no result will come, right? If you execute this query here also, for example, if I execute it here, I don't have any record, right? Nothing is coming. So even here it will never go inside this loop, because rs.next will return false. So if I give it greater than 300, right click and run, it will not give me any result here, right? This is that no result has come here. Okay, so this is how we basically can fetch data from database. So the steps remain same. First of all is load the driver, then get connection, then statement, and then the query, right? And I have told you the difference between execute query and query is for any operation. Execute query is when you want to fetch the record from the database, right? So then what about update operation? If you want to perform an update operation, So let's say I take this update db, right? So update is pretty much same thing. Here you will modify the query, right? So update, where is that? Set salary equal to this much, where id equal to, for example, if that condition is met, it will go ahead and do that, update, right? Now I don't need all of this, and this is, I don't need all of this. Okay, it is dot execute update operation I have to do, up, right? And here I will choose my update query. Yeah, so it will take that update query and execute it for me, and I'll have that chain reflected in my database, right? So if you want, so let me employ where id is 101. So do I have, yes, id is there with 101. Currently it is 200, right? I'm making it 250. Fine. So if I try to run this particular program, right click, run as Java application. So let's see if it, yeah, so it ran without any error for me. Let me go back here and refresh. So it has become 250 form, right? So is there any question I can take from anybody, from the people who have joined online, or any doubt so far what we have done? Okay, so we have done major operations, insert, update, delete, right? Rest of the queries also you can just, all you have to remember is the distinction between these three things, or these three types of queries. That should be sufficient to help you to execute. Query is there, execute update is there, and execute is there. Execute query is when you are fetching the data from the database, right? Now where you can make use of this, I mean, if you are into testing or whichever way you are working, suppose sometimes you might have to create or register a user by fetching data from, let's say, database table, right? And then use a different what you say, data driven testing approach to get data and do your testing or whatever it is, right? So these are very basic. I mean, JDBC by itself is a huge topic if you go into details, but intention of this webinar was to help you understand how you set up database, right? And then how you create instance, how you connect to database and the different tools, so that you can do some basic programming and perform some basic operations. Okay, now before we wind up, what I'm going to do is, uh, as I had told you in the beginning also, what you can do is you can go to Google if you want to find out where you will find all this code. So you can go to YouTube, search for this uh, channel called Connect to Tech. Okay, once you search here, you will find the latest video with the name JDBC webinar. So let's say this is the one. I mean, I still have to upload it. It will take me some time, maybe 10-15 minutes. So once you go here, and if you will go to the comment section there, here I will put the link where you can download, where you can access the code also. So the code generally I put on Bitbucket. So it will, there will be a link like this. So suppose Bitbucket, if you will go here, okay, in Bitbucket you will find a link like this. Um, so for example, this is connect2tech.in-rnd, right? So in your case, you will find something like this, connect2tech.in-java-j2e, right? In this, you can go inside the code source folder. There you will find all the code which I have just explained to you, and the jar file is also there, right? Plus, if you want to know where to download the SQL Server from, you can go to notes.txt file, and this is where you will find the option to download the MySQL Server as well. Okay, so I have already told you that I have shared the link of this particular project. You can go to SRC folder and find the Java files which we used in the session. Plus, if you want to take that jar file, it is under this folder, right? So you can download it, create a project on your machines locally, and use this particular code. Okay, so for the notes, what I'll do is I will create a folder here. I'll create file new notes. Okay, and this document which I was making use of, okay, I'll save it as a PDF. So let me do that also. So I will export this PDF. Okay, I'll put it here currently on my desktop. Okay, so I'm putting this notes also so that you can access. I'll just do it right away. So for you that also. So where is that? Daniel Royce. Okay, so this is the notes. I'll put it here in the folder called notes. Okay, git commit minus okay, so I have checked in that notes also. So just refresh that folder and you can find that also. I believe it will take maybe a few seconds to get refreshed. Yeah, so you can find the folder notes here, and that PDF file is also available here. Okay, and for all this that we have discussed, I am going to upload the video on the YouTube. You can follow through the video, and as I told you at the bottom of I mean, now you don't need the link I have already shared, but this link which is here I'll put on the YouTube as well. This is the link that you need for Bitbucket, right? So I'm going to add this link on the YouTube channel for you. Okay, so that's all for today's discussion. If you have any question, please feel free to ask your question.